Hi everyone, welcome to the Tony Tan Show and Podcast. My name is Tony Tan and I'm the CEO of Imperium and Optimus AI, an award-winning author, keynote speaker, and a host of the Tony Tan Show. The world of cybersecurity is evolving faster than ever, driven by the mass adoption of various AI tools, creating a storm of attacks threatening to overcome our cyber defenses. How do we mitigate against these AI-driven attacks? And is there a role that AI could assist the good guys to defend our assets against attack? To discuss the future of cybersecurity and the role of AI today, we have with us on the show Garrett O'Hara. He's the Senior Director, Solutions Engineering, APAC at Mimecast, a leading cybersecurity solution provider in the areas of business email compromise, phishing, and zero-day attacks. Garrett combines a strong technical background with 2 decades of real-world business acumen. He is also a regular speaker at industrial conferences and a guest on podcasts and TV. Garrett's obsession in life is to help organizations understand and manage their cyber resilient strategies. So ladies and gentlemen, please join me to welcome Garrett to the Tony Tan Show and Podcast. So Garrett, thank you for joining us today. I heard that you took a bomb scare and some flight delays to get all the way to Singapore.
It was an interesting start to the week this week. So yeah, I was supposed to fly out on Monday, and our flight took off about 1 p.m. and about an hour into the flight, maybe less, we ended up turning around because there was a guy on the plane who said he had a bomb and he was threatening the staff and he threatened some of the passengers. So we ended up landing back in Sydney, and then we sat for 3 hours on the runway waiting for the Australian Federal Police to come in and clear the airplane and make sure that everything was safe. So not the normal start to a week.
Wow, but you know what? I'm so glad that you made it safely to our podcast today.
Me too.
Anyway, welcome to Singapore, Garrett.
Thank you.
And why don't you share with us a little bit about your background? Because I know that you are such a senior guy. You have done so much work for companies. Maybe you can share with me a little bit of what do you do for a living?
Yeah, so right now I'm working in a company called Mimecast. So I run the sales engineering team for APAC, so the Australian team and the ASEAN team. And I suppose our job is the customer advocacy from a technical perspective. So making sure that as people look at our product and our platform, that we're a good fit for what they need to solve for what their problems are. I've been with Mimecast for just over 8 years.
Wow.
And longest I've ever been in a job or in a company. And a really a squiggly line pathway to get there. I started in development. So I was a programmer for many years and used to build business applications. And then what happened was I'm Irish originally, so we're good at talking. And what I found was I was the guy who was getting put in front of the room to explain how the product worked and to essentially kind of demonstrate the value of the things that I was building. And I realized I liked that more than sitting at the keyboard typing all day. So slowly but surely I moved into pre-sales roles. And then I've done project management, training and education. I've done lots of different roles. Yeah. Been very lucky.
Wow. I mean, 8 years is a long time. Right. I mean, with what you're doing and with the kind of broad experience that you have, you probably will have a front row seat of what's going on in the cybersecurity developments over the last decade. What do you think is the current state of cybersecurity today after COVID without the influences of AI? Where are we right now,
I think we're in a pretty significant inflection point on two sides. I think the threat landscape has changed dramatically, as I'm sure you're well aware. The volume of attacks, the sophistication of attacks have massively increased. We're seeing more nation-state level attacks and very well-funded, well-researched, highly targeted cyber attacks happening more and more. And at the same time, I mean, AI, you've mentioned, that's so big as far as a change on the attack side. So using AI to do phishing attack, creation, and the social engineering. Emails is a very simple example. But I would say also Worm GPT, you're probably aware of that, which is a large language model built specifically around creating malware for attackers. That's a game changer because it just completely lowers the benchmark or the sort of cost of entry if you want to attack an organization. You don't really need a whole lot now. You need to pay for access to a GPT or a large language model AI, and that can create the malware for you. The other thing I see changing dramatically is on the defense side, and we're seeing much more of a use case for AI and machine learning, probably more specifically on the defense side. So a lot of vendors like ourselves are including AI and machine learning in our platforms to protect against those attacks too. But
so I look at from a Singapore context, right? If you look at the records that we have, and you look at the research that we are doing year on year in terms of ransomware attacks and in terms of zero-day attacks, it has been going up, right? There's no letting off of steam or pressure, right, on our cybersecurity responders over the last couple of years, as well as being such a connected city, Singapore, with so much concentration of global headquarters. You are right to say that the volume of attack has grown so much more than before. All right, and you covered a few points in that couple of minutes earlier, and we really want to zoom down a little bit about some of the things that you are saying. Right, already without the full impact of AI, and without the launch of ChatGPT just 1 year ago, the volume has already been increasing. Right now, with the context of AI, with the coming in of AI, convergence of AI, I think the landscape is changing drastically. Right? Can you just give me a bit more context with some of the things that you say on what is AI and why AI is playing such a big role on cybersecurity today, both for the good and the bad?
Yeah. When I think about AI, I almost like to reset the conversation. Like AI is incredibly important. Like we can take that as true. I also think we sometimes treat it like it's magical, like it's a Harry Potter wand that does something, just incredible that, we don't really understand. And in reality, what AI, when we talk about it, it's really machine learning generally that we're talking about. So that's a subset of AI. And machine learning is incredibly good at a very specific problem set, I would say, which is very large data sets where you've got repeatable patterns. So here I'm thinking malicious URLs, websites, and those kind of things. The machine learning and how you approach that, it's really just very good statistics, the kind of statistics that honestly has been around for a long time, but you can apply them at a scale that you never could before. So the access to huge amounts of data through the internet and how much we talk to each other and how much research gets published, the media production of content all the time. There's just massive volumes of information being produced, which feeds into the large language models then to create generative AI outputs. But again, it's machine learning, right? So there's no sentience, it isn't magical. It is literally predicting the next word in a sentence, whether that's for a phishing email or whether that's for creating malware. The reality is it's useful, I would say, really only after you've exhausted nearly all the other things that you could do to protect an organization. It's become, I would say, essential. So I don't think we can get away from the fact that we need to use AI and to defend because the attackers are using it. But I think we shouldn't veer too much away from knowing that there's a lot of other things that we should also still be doing because AI on its own can't solve those problems. So here I'm thinking of like traditional programming where you would use lookup tables to solve a problem. If a car runs a red light in Singapore, AI doesn't really help you there. Well, maybe it does for license plate recognition, but if you know the license plate number, that's a lookup. That's incredibly efficient, incredibly effective, incredibly fast, and it gives you the answer that you need. And in cybersecurity, that works still. That thinking still works. So we know about malicious IP addresses. We know about file hashes. We know about malicious URLs. So we can do lots of things before we ever need to go to the point where we're involving AI, including things like static file analysis, behavioral analysis of files, like so sandboxing technologies, And that applies to email, but I would say also networking. So there's a lot of things that I think AI isn't going to be incredibly important to augment, but I'm not so sure that it's going to fully replace a lot of what we do at the moment, because it isn't exact. It's not like a lookup where the answer is either yes or it's no. The answer is, it's like 90% yes, 10% we're not so sure. And that becomes a problem if you're a large enterprise or a business. If the AI gets it wrong and it blocks the email from the CEO that is going to close a huge deal, like that's unacceptable. So we're not quite there yet. So I think there's so much to talk about here, I think.
Would you say, I mean, from the conversation that we have, that AI plays an augmented role rather than a replacement role in the near or foreseeable future?
1,000% what you just said there. Yeah, I totally agree with you. Yeah. We're human beings, so I think we get excited. I know I do. When new technology comes out, I get excited and I think, oh, wow, like this is incredible. I don't know how old you are. Like I've been around tech for quite some time, decades. I don't remember anything hitting the industry the way ChatGPT did. Like the level of astonishment that I saw in the tech industry of what it was able to do, probably 4 more than 3. It felt like magic. It literally felt like somebody had created magic, that it could predict so well how to craft a poem or to write a song or to write a phishing email or to write some malware. Like, quite astonishing. But at the same time, for attackers, the reality is they're probably still going to go sending phishing links. They're trying to steal credentials. There's 90% of what we can do to protect ourselves that really probably doesn't need AI or ML at all. We can do it really well, really fast, really efficiently without AI or ML. But I think where it gets interesting is once you include a machine learning and AI as part of your overall stack, the false positive problem, so that probability problem, starts to get reduced. So you can have an answer that comes from one part of the stack that is then double checked by machine learning or AI to get you much closer to 100% efficacy. So I think with both, we are in a better position for security.
Yeah. It's interesting that you talk about large language models right now. I think we all know that one of the key weaknesses or glaring weakness that we see in phishing attacks or ransomware is the way the emails are crafted, right? It gives the game away. But with GPT, of course, that's a thing of the past, right? It is very, very difficult right now, right? And to really tell whether this is really a phishing attack. And to make things worse, for good and for bad, right? Sometimes, even I'm so trained in AI, when I'm so busy and decisions overload come into play, sometimes I just click the button, It is just a habit. It's not that you're not aware of it, you're just not mindful of it. And the attacks does come in this way, right? So I think it is still dangerous, with this type of attacks, even with people who are educated like us, we are still vulnerable to these attacks. And you talk a little bit about, and I think we need AI augmentation, as you said earlier, to help people like us who are overloaded or making mistakes sometimes mindlessly. But before we even go there, I want to ask you a question that you spoke about earlier. You speak about something called a worm GPT. Could you just give us some insights? What is this thing all about?
Yeah, so it's developed by a guy, I think he's in Portugal. They've actually tracked down who it was. He had an online presence where they could track his online accounts and eventually found out who the person was. If you think about ChatGPT, it's built around people like us wanting to write a poem or to have a letter written to a travel agency for a refund. It's designed around those kind of use cases, so really quite harmless. And because of the ethics that are involved in AI, and I think that's an evolving conversation that I don't think we know a lot of the answers there still. But if you're Microsoft, OpenAI, any of the large tech platforms that are starting to use AI, there's a very large ethics consideration there. So what they will do is try and limit the abilities of the model, so that if you ask to please give me the instructions for making a gun from a 3D printer, it's going to say no, I can't do that. That's illegal. Interestingly, even with the non-worm GPT, our problem is what you can do is decompose that problem down into saying, no, don't build me the gun, but build the barrel and build a handle and build a trigger. And you can get it to do those individual parts separately. And then you say, how do you assemble a gun? And then the sort of the rails that they've put around the models don't quite work. In theory, the AI models that are being produced, the generative AI, they're supposed to protect us from doing dangerous things. So asking for instructions on how to make a bomb to get on an airplane is one example. But a lot of the sort of code is open source. So you can go and you can take that code and the model and the algorithm, and then all you need to do is find the information to feed into it to then get your answer on the other side of that. So what you're starting to see emerge is bespoke versions of generative AI platforms, but they're designed with large language models that are fed from the dark web, from malware forums, from social engineering forums. All of the attackers, when they communicate on the web, you can feed that into a model, and WormGPT is an example of that. What pops out the other side isn't the safe, ethical version that you get from ChatGPT, but actually is designed to create malware, ransomware attacks, all of those, the things that organizations like us then have to go and fight against.
Yeah. So at one angle, we're talking about using AI to reduce the false positives to augment what we have. And then the other angle, we're seeing a tsunami of advanced attacks created by the same technology but used in a different context. Would you say that the future of cybersecurity, what's your take about the future of cybersecurity? Is it going to be a case where it's AI versus AI?
It's a really interesting thought experiment because it reminds me a little bit of the stock exchange, where once you introduced computers, the first organization that did that, and they could use computers to do transactions really quickly and to analyze the market and basically be there a fraction of a second before to not manipulate, but take advantage of the time difference. And then another company invented the same thing, and it became basically machine on machine. And when you look at some of the the micro crashes that happen on the stock exchange, it's when one machine is fighting another. I can't see a way that we don't end up in some version of machine fighting machine. And that's scary enough when you think about it at a private enterprise level, where you'll have organizations like us producing artificial intelligence and machine learning algorithms that will take action at machine speed to protect an organization. And at the same time, on the attacker side, they're doing similar things. And it literally becomes cat and mouse, and we're just constantly kind of leapfrogging each other. It scares me. I'm not going to lie. I find it really frightening, because what you get to a point, and you would know this, so much of AI we don't understand. We don't understand how the algorithms recognize a face. We know that it does it. We don't really understand how it knows that's a cat video or not a cat video. So there's an element of the models being kind of a black box that we don't really understand. And what I find frightening is if it gets to the point where those machines are fighting each other at a speed that we just won't be able to keep up with, if stuff goes wrong, we won't even know why. Because we won't have a SOC and security operations center environment where people are looking at a dashboard and seeing the attack happen. Humans won't be able to keep up. And that's a kind of a frightening future, I think. I mean, we're not there. I think in the meantime, what we will see is if you're in that SOC environment, in that security operations center, monitoring a corporate enterprise as one example, that with the assistance of machine learning, you're going to be able to make better, faster decisions, because the algorithm will get you to the point where it's presenting better data with fewer false positives. So you're not distracted by false alerts or, the alarm that goes off, but actually it's not really anything. And I think before we get to the point where it'll be machine fighting machines, we'll see machine learning assist us and help us before then.
It's interesting you point out about this fact that we all understand the underbellies of AI, right? It's unexplainable at this stage, right? I want to bring up an analogy to that. In certain ways, the human race has went back to the dark ages. And why do I say that? We have the Enlightenment, we have humanism, and then today we are where we are. But during the dark age, we've survived on one word, and the word is called faith. And now, in the 21st century, in the age of AI, we are again surviving on a word called faith. So it's like we are going through dark ages part 2, right? By relying on this technology that we don't even know what are some of the consequences of it, of harnessing this technology going forward. So it's an interesting look at this evolution of AI and its impact on cybersecurity. But if you look at also recently, right, with AI getting more and more dominant in our conversations, that is part of our technologies that we're offering the market, there are some thought leaders who came out and say that, because AI is going to be used as a platform and it's going to be wide-reaching, they see that potentially there will be a consolidation of solution providers around AI. But there's another school that thinks, hey, no, look at, with AI, actually what we can do is that there will be a lot more problems that's coming up. Actually, what you're going to see is the expansion of various type of niche solution providers in the market to tackle new problems going forward. What's your take? Do you think AI will consolidate the providers, or is going to expand the pool of providers in the market?
I think both. So I think both of what you've said will happen at some level. So here, the biggest problem right now is the cost of entry to do large language models is significant. Like, it's a very, there's a reason it's Microsoft and it's OpenAI and well-funded tech platforms and tech organizations. Sure, like, you can do smaller versions of that. I get it. But the ones that consumers will use and corporates will use, I think my worry is that you'll see a distillation into a few very large AI-driven organizations that have the data set. And I think actually that becomes the key. It's the access to the input, the data, the training data. That's going to be one of the biggest differentiators. And I'd come back to the, we spoke about it a little bit earlier, where the ethics of this and the regulation and the policy, as is the way in technology, we should have been having this conversation 10 years ago about what we would do when AI got to the point where we are now. And instead, what we see is governments around the world freaking out because ChatGPT landed. Everybody finally realized what this stuff really means, not just to, we're having a cybersecurity conversation, jobs. There is a lot of jobs that become doable cheaper, faster, easier with AI, not humans. And I think that's what you're going to see is this, to your point, general AI, not general AI in the sense of sort of sentient version of AI, but more the general use case of AI. I see consolidation there because of the cost of access to the data and how you do that. You're starting to see that some of the organizations are paying for inputs. So for Reuters or Associated Press, they will actually now get sort of a licensing cost for the AI companies to ingest that data to give meaningful output. So I wonder what the business model is there. That it's going to be driven by the market. And every time something like this happens, you tend to see a distillation into a few players that will get so far ahead, it almost becomes impossible to be a new market entrant. Like, it just, you can't do it because search engines. Let's be honest, for as long as Google has been around, there has been DuckDuckGo, there's been Bing, there's been lots of attempts to dethrone the king of search engines. And it's nearly impossible because the data that gets built up by Google gives them such an advantage and a head start. You come in and you're a new search engine. Why? You don't get the value. Obviously, that changes now with Bing, and the use of AI completely changes that. So there you go. And then I think you're really correct in terms of the niche use cases, because you think about something like a medical practice where that's one of the most commonly talked about use cases, is that it gives you access to really good medical care on your mobile device wherever you are in the world. Once you have an internet connection, you could say, here's the symptoms, here's my history, and an AI model that can figure out all the data from all the doctors around the world can say, oh, maybe you've got this ailment, and if you take this supplement for 4 weeks, or this medication, and that's going to fix you. So I think you're going to see use cases there. Legal is another one, where the law profession, I think there's probably a lot of people worried about what it means to be a lawyer today, and I suspect people going through college or university to be a lawyer, they're looking at the world of AI and thinking, wow, okay, like, you're getting to the point where generative AI can actually start to write briefs, understand precedents, do all of those things that lawyers, as they were starting, would have to do as the sort of almost hazing or the donkey work to become then a highly respected lawyer going forward. There's every role. I don't think there's a role on this planet that won't be affected by that stuff. And I think those niche use cases, you'll see those.
It's going to be interesting to see the next 4 or 5 years. right?
And scary.
Yeah, yeah. I do think that there will be some market consolidation, but I will think that as we continue to evolve, and AI is going to evolve, new use cases will come out and new startups will come out. It's just that the old boys, big as they are, they're not going to be agile enough. I mean, that's always been like that, right? So I totally subscribe to you, what you have said, right? I think it's a case of both, right? Now, remember I said earlier that, even I'm cybersecurity trained, I've been in cybersecurity for a long time. Sometimes I make mistakes, not because I'm not aware. Sometimes I'm just not mindful enough. And I know the company you work for, Mimecast, they use some of the cutting-edge AI technologies to help people like me. Could you just share a little bit about what your company do and what sort of AI do you employ to prevent mistakes that I've made, like just I mentioned earlier, mindlessly clicking on some of these things, right? To protect me against the future of attacks.
Yeah. I suppose the first thing to talk about is you made a really interesting comment there, which is the mindlessness, or the fact that you're a clever person, you understand cyber, but you will still sometimes.
I would like to think I'm clever.
Yeah. I'm positive you are positive based on this conversation. I know you are. But what you've said there is actually really insightful, because I think our problem in cybersecurity isn't awareness. It's what you said. It's alertness. It's mindfulness and alertness. Not is there a risk here? People know that now. So I think that's an important point. And we have an awareness training platform that's designed to kind of cut through the noise of the day and really get people engaged with the content and learn. And we do things like, if somebody clicks on a link, it'll ask you, do you think it's secure? So kind of micro training as you go. Now, when it comes to AI, there's a few different things for our platform that are going on. We use, we've got so many engines, technologies that we use that are proprietary, and also a bunch of OEMs, so third-party engines and technologies. And we're in a really nice position that we can actually go and look at what's a technology that solves this problem really, really well. And then we can go and build that into our stack. So we can use our own engines and then go and say, you guys do this incredibly well. Let's bring you in, and you can help us and add to our defense in depth. So we've got a very broad and deep stack across so many different parts of communications. And it almost comes back to what we were talking about right at the very start, actually, where that works incredibly well. It gets you very, very close to 100% efficacy for most of what we would see. What you've seen, though, is the emergence of things like business email compromise and those phishing attacks that you're saying when you mindlessly click. Where AI and machine learning get really useful is the analysis of that content. So, for example, URLs are a really good example of those very, very large data sets that are there's a repeatable nature to malicious URLs. There's things that a machine learning algorithm can pick up that even a human being wouldn't necessarily spot. Very obscure patterns in the characters that make up a URL or the website that a malicious website, the attributes of a malicious website. When you look at the ability to scan or CPU cycles, we have an access to, and our platform it's a hyperscale platform, so we have a huge amount of CPU and compute power available to us. So what that lets us do then is to very quickly scan, say, something like a website and look at all the attributes, literally, hundreds of those within a website, things that a human being wouldn't even notice. And that's the AI is designed to do that. It's like unsupervised learning. So it's looking for patterns that we just wouldn't see. No human being, the best security analyst on the planet, could look at a website and maybe not see what an AI algorithm would be able to. So in your example where you click on a link and just have a moment where not enough coffee, or it's late in the day.
One of those days.
Yeah. And we've all been there, right? That's the thing. That's where the technology layer comes in to protect the organization. So first thing is looking at the URL, and that would happen before the email ever comes to you, right? So there's an element of that. And then when it goes to the website, there's a thing called headless browsing. So it's basically before you get to go to the website, a headless browser goes there and it checks that website for things like, it uses computer vision. So basically looking for the visual makeup of that web page. Like, is there a logo there that maybe looks like a Microsoft or a Google logo? And what's beautiful here is it's not looking for a hash of the image or a fingerprint. It's looking at the image like a human being would do and looking at, oh, that looks like, based on an AI interpretation, maybe a Microsoft logo, as one example. But it's not sitting on a Microsoft domain. That's probably credential harvesting. So it's basically getting in there and doing a very fast and very deep analysis of content so that before the website gets opened in your browser, we can say, actually, nah, it looks like Microsoft. It's not Microsoft.
And you're doing this real time across millions of emails coming in and out of your organization.
Yep. Yeah.
That's incredibly powerful.
Yeah. We were very lucky. We got to, we have some very, very talented people. Some of the most clever people I've ever spoken to in real life now work in Mimecast. And some of those were involved in building out what's called the X1 platform. And it's made up of multiple layers. But the bottom layer is our data analytics layer. And it lets us use AI and machine learning in a way that really sets us up for the next 10, 15, 20 years. Because we've got hyperscale architecture to do the scanning. But the new rock and roll within cyber is the ability to scan very, very large volumes of data to look for those patterns so that the next time around, we know already because we've seen literally millions, billions of these things before. So yeah, it's incredible. It's powerful. Yeah.
And I'm especially excited about your behavior analytics capabilities, especially when it comes to business email compromise. Right? Sometimes there is no way to know that the email is compromised without AI, without your assistance, without technology like Mimecast, right? How important do you think behavior analytics is for the prevention of cybersecurity attacks?
Yeah, it's got a lot of very interesting use cases, some of which we are kind of involved in, and then there's other ones that I would say other organizations do, things like network analysis, like that's not really where we play, or patterns of life type stuff where you can map when does somebody come to work, do they access email from a particular device, what folders or what databases do they access during a day, and you can build up a normal and then do things when you see not normal. So we do very similar things, but on the communications side of things. So if you can imagine, as you or your colleagues are working in your company, over the course of time, you can clearly see the strong and weak communication patterns between you and the people that you send emails to outside of your organization, and also who's emailing back into your organization. And again, algorithms can do wonderful things that actually do seem like magic sometimes, where they can look at hundreds of attributes of an email. Look, when I think of an email, I think of a subject line from to, the body of the email and maybe an attachment. That's 4 or 5 things. But for an algorithm, it can spot a bunch of attributes, it can sort of break down the header information, word length, sentences, the style of writing, all of those component parts of an email, and very quickly build up a very, very detailed and very strongly understood pattern of normal for an organization, but also for an individual user. So that kind of behavior of the communication channel for you. Where that gets really powerful is that because now you know what normal looks like. Yes. If the sort of algorithm then sees something that's outside of normal, amazing. We can do things. We can jump in there. We can start to do things like add a contextual dynamic banner to the email so that you mentioned being sort of mindlessly clicking on things. You're, I'm sure, aware of alert fatigue. Yes. That
every day I'm getting some of that.
Same message. This may be a dangerous email. This may be a dangerous email. This may be a dangerous email. And eventually, you kind of ignore it because it's the same message. And maybe 5 out of 6 times, it turned out it wasn't a dangerous email. Actually, it was okay. And I know there's a lot. That's better than nothing, by the way. And I know that's the kind of, it's like the default approach for interacting with an end user. So hopefully, you see that and, you go, I was going to mindlessly click on it, but I won't because the message is there. They don't really work. That's the problem. But if we use AI to build that pattern and that model of what normal looks like, now if we see something that sits out of that, we can then tell the user very specifically, this is the first time you've got an email from Alice at this organization. In fact, this is the first time anybody in your organization has gotten an email from Alice. Alice is asking your accounts payable department to pay, this is the scenario. So if I'm in that accounts payable department and I see, hang on, first time they're asking for payment and maybe it's a cousin domain of something that's already known, and it's showing me a color code for the level of danger. So not just this is dangerous, but actually yellow or red is like, actually, we strongly recommend you don't interact with this. That becomes meaningful. You can understand the behavior of the organization and then build around that. And I think that's quite a powerful thing to be able to do.
Yeah, so originally we spoke about a little bit about how ChatGPT could write such great phishing emails, and now we counter it with behavior user analytics from Mimecast. So that gives us hope. And then, for a moment we talk about worm ChatGPT, and it creates some kind of a dark, there's a kind of dark shadow over my heart when you just mentioned it earlier. And now we know that Mimecast has a suite of AI technologies that help us to counter some of these emerging threats. So in a way, although this is evolving, we are already seeing some of this AI versus AI technology going at each other. And at the end of the day, I would like to say that looking at your explanation of where Mimecast is, I would say that a big part of how to counter the bad guys are the effective usage of positive AI, right? Together augmentation with human forces, right? So this gives us hope, right? We know that we will continue to develop, and hopefully we are always one step ahead of the bad guys, right? And we are excited also that to see where Mimecast is going into the future and what other AI technology as you can bring into play as this never-ending story evolves. So, Jared, I know that a big part of your life, besides being involved in bomb scares on aircraft and working your ass off on cybersecurity, I know that you are a real great human inside you. So I want to understand, you have survived through COVID. Congratulations. What is some of the wisdom about that you have harnessed after the last 4 years?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I think I believe to be fundamentally true is that human beings are incredible, and they're at their heart generally very good people. And it matters. Being nice to people and being kind to people and being thoughtful matters. I think it's very easy these days to disconnect, be on Zoom and spend so much time on phones, where we communicate with these two things instead of our eyes and our mouths and, being with people. I think the cyber industry, and you would know, it's full of astonishingly kind and thoughtful people. And I think that's the thing. If there's wisdom, it's that, it's for folks like us, I think, to look for the next generation and try and do everything we can to support those folks as they come through, because we've been there and we know what it's like. But I think it's that being thoughtful and being kind to people, it really, really matters. And I don't know if that's wisdom per se, but it matters.
So what you're saying is that the beauty of humanity shines through, and you have more appreciative of it over the last 4 years.
It has. I mean, I think the testing times, they talk about it in the Blitz. Like on Monday, we saw it on the plane. That moment where there's a bomb scare and you don't know how that's going to go. And then you're sitting there with a bunch of people from, many Malaysians, Australians, I'm sure Singaporeans were on that plane. And amazing how quickly everybody came together. There was something happening. And how lovely and how friendly everybody was to each other on that plane. Apart from that one person, everybody else was really lovely. And I think it's so easy these days because of algorithms, because of AI, reinforcing our opinions, and especially if they're negative. And we see radicalization in so many different areas of the world, because we see the same opinions that we already have just get dialed up until all of a sudden something like what happened on Monday happens. But that's not real. That is not the world that we live in. The world we live in is human beings that tend to be pretty nice people and tend to want to do the right thing, and tend to, in our industry, I mean, you would know this. You talk to these people all the time. They're really good people. They care about what we do. They're in a fight. It's good versus evil,
So there's hope yet for the human race, Jared.
I hope so. Yeah. I really do. Yeah.
So let me ask you one last question before I release you. If there's one attribute that is going to matter in the future of AI for humanity, what would that attribute be?
For humans or for the
humans.
robots? Yeah.
How do we live with AI in the near future?
I think for everybody, we need to know what it all means. And I think the attribute right now is what's the opposite of ignorance? So the attribute would be awareness of AI, and making sure that people know what it means for their job, knows how to have a conversation with their politicians, and how to make sure that in their country the governments are paying attention and potentially trying to, put regulations that will protect the country. So there's going to be huge change. I think, there's no way we can't get around that. The toothpaste is out of the tube. You can't put it back in. So now we need to figure out what's the way we can get societies from where we are to potentially a better version of all of this, where do we get down to 3-day working weeks? I don't know, for you and me, that's probably a bit of a weird idea, but maybe we get there and that becomes normal. But I think the thing is awareness. And I think, if I can have two instead of just one, we're probably going to need a big dose of grit. We'll need to push through some very challenging times, I think. And human beings that's what we do. We've been around for a long time. We do.
Thank you so much, Gerald. Thank you for your wonderful insights about AI, about what technologies like Mimecast is here potentially to help us and to mitigate some of these huge risks and this volume of attacks we're going to see very soon happening in the market. And also thank you very much for your personal insights about what it means to where the future of AI is going to go, as well as your wisdom and as well as your positive spin on humanity. We appreciate it so much. And thank you for joining the Tony Tan Show and podcast. We look forward to collaborate closer together in the near future, Gerald.
Look forward to it too. Thank you so much for having me.